titles already. I was looking at the.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Dawson County Board of Commissioners voting session today is December the 16th, 2021. We appreciate all of you that are here with us in attendance, as well as all of those that are listening to us online. First, I need a motion to come out of executive session.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Satterfield,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that is approved 4-0. We are out of executive session. We'll start out with a roll call. And as you can see, we're all here. Ask everyone to please stand for a brief invocation and pledge. You would bow your heads, please. Our dear gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you for this another day and for the many blessings of life. We ask that you give us knowledge and wisdom to carry out the business of this great county. Anything that we accomplish will give you the honor and glory. It's in Christ's name we do ask and pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You may be seated. All right, does the board have any announcements? I have a couple. County offices will be closed December 24th and 27th for the Christmas holidays and December 31st for the New Year's holiday. Our next BOC meeting will be held on January 20th, 2022. And starting next year, work and voting sessions will run consecutively with the work session beginning at 4 p.m. And Ms. Laura, you have an announcement, so please come on down.
Good afternoon. So I left with y'all earlier today a new Connect with Us card. So I actually didn't know that we would have these back from the printer today. So that's why it was not on an agenda or on the county manager report. But in a way to connect with our citizens, I am trying to increase our social media as well as our website, which we redid about 2 years ago. So on this card, people can find the QR codes so they can easily go to all of the pages. They can see the website addresses or the social media links. And then on the back of the card is a frequently called numbers list. And so those are numbers that when we talk with the front desk ladies, ones that are most transferred calls. So we thought that would be a good thing. But this card, I'm going to work with the chamber and get this into the new resident guides, put it in our meeting packets back here, work with Rotary, put it in different community areas so that we can help get the word out on how to connect with us and stay more informed with our meetings. So any questions or anything?
Questions for Laura?
Good.
Yeah, that's good.
Thank you, ma'am, for doing a good
Thank you.
job. All right, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. First up, we have the amendment to the minutes of the voting session held on November the 4th, 2021. Or any additions or deletions to that? Motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Dooley,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that amendment to those minutes is approved 4-0. Next up, we have the minutes of the work session held on December 2nd, 2021. Any additions or deletions? Motions.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Satterfield. Seconded by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And those minutes are approved 4-0. Next up, we have the minutes of the voting session held on December 2nd, 2021. Any additions or deletions? Motions.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Dooley. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And those minutes are approved 4-0. We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. I do have some changes to the agenda. First is addition of another name for consideration for item C, tax assessors. That's going to be under number 7, board appointments under new business. Be Miss Roxanne Howard, the term January 2022 through December 2026. And also the additions of letter D and E below number 7, board appointments under new business, Industrial Building Authority, Gary Coates, reappointment January 2022 through December 2025. Brian Trapnell, reappointment term January 2022 through December 2025. Planning Commission, Jason Hamby, District 1, reappointment term January 2022 through December 2022. Seth Stowers, District 1, alternate, reappointment January 2022 through December 2022. Tim Bennett, District 3, reappointment term January 2022 through December 2022. Gene Marowski, District 3, alternate, reappointment term January 2022 through December 2022. And these are in line with the terms of the board. Also, additions of number 9, 10, 11, and 12 under new business. Number 9 being Family Connection 2022 physical agent request. Number 10, contract 386-21 design build services for 2 artificial infield grass surfaces. That's a change order. Number 11, title and grade change for 2 information technology employees. And number 12, updated Title VI plan in Georgia Department of Transportation Drug and Alcohol Policy for 2022. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with those changes.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett, Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Satterfield. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that is approved 4-0 with the listed changes. At this time, we have public comment. Miss Jane Graves is here. Come on up.
Okay. Thank you, commissioners, for listening to me for 2 seconds. As a lake resident, I would highly recommend and ask and plead that you go ahead this evening and vote for a short-term rental agreement. As you well know, a lot of the lake residences are on very small plots of land. We're exceedingly close together. Our land is about 100 feet by 200 feet. So our neighbors are exceedingly close. A lot of our subdivisions are in fact older. They have no HOAs, they have no covenants. And so we literally have no protections from whoever decides to invest and rent these properties. As you can also see, if you look at the tax assessor's site, that we pay very dearly on the land prices. Some of our residents are paying about $450 for an acre. $450,000 an acre, very small lots. So you've got a large tax base there. If you are going to invest or allow people to invest in using those, you're going to find that your tax base will decline with residents moving out. There's also issues regarding blight, especially with some of the older properties. Properties around the lake vary. They aren't all McMansions. Some of them are small residences and they're not suitable for large parties. And one other request I would have, when you are licensing and enforcing, it's really important that that is done well and promptly, because a lot of things get licensed and then they're not checked on. And so when they are licensed, please take a look at the fact that some of these properties have shared driveways, and so they go over other people's land. There's a lot of easements. For example, a lot of our driveways are actually over someone else's land. So it's not a public road. And so there's a lot of things on the lake that really require looking at, especially with short-term rental agreements. And lastly, safety on the lake. Now, how many of you actually go on the lake in the summer? Yeah. Have you noticed how busy it's getting? I haven't looked at the statistics for accidents, but I'm sure they're there. If it's going to turn into a holiday camp out there, we actually live on a bay where folks decide to go round and round all the time with their tubing, and it breaks up our docks. So if you're going to increase that, you're going to have a lot more accidents on the lake and a lot more busyness there. It's going to destroy the property values as well as our docks. I appreciate you listening to me. Thank you. And
Thank you,
please
ma'am.
vote in favor of the short-term rental agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to alcohol license. New alcohol license, retail package selling beer and wine, easy by Quick Mart. Harmony, you gonna do that?
Commissioners, Mr. Shaw will be purchasing a business located at 38 Henry Grady Highway, which is known as Easy Buy gas station in the first quarter of 2022. No issues or concerns were raised by the background check and all necessary documents have been completed.
Questions for Harmony?
Is that the store kind of where all those boats are?
It's right beside it. Yes,
Right
ma'am.
beside it. Yeah, right when you turn off of
Yes, ma'am.
400.
The existing, we're just doing a license.
Yes, sir. We're
transfer.
transferring the license.
Other questions for Harmony? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Dooley,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. That alcohol license is approved 4-0. Next, we'll move on to zoning. I'll go over the rules that we will use in this zoning process. First, we'll hear from the planning director. They'll present the application and recommendation to the planning commission. Then we'll hear from the applicant. Then we'll open the hearing. We'll hear from those who are in favor of the application. We'll hear from those who are opposed to the application. Each person wishing to speak will be allotted 3 minutes per our zoning guidelines. Anyone who speaks will need to sign in and give us your name and address. Also, if anyone has donated $250 or more to any candidate, you will need to fill out a form stating so. So those are the rules that we will use on our zoning tonight. So we'll start out with ZA 2121. Jim King requests to rezone tax map parcel 098-015, 098-016-001, and 098-016-002 from RA residential agriculture to RS3 residential suburban 3 for the purpose of developing a 379 lot subdivision, Highway 9 South Goodson Road. There's a variance with that, VR 21-08. Jim King requests a variance to the Dawson County subdivision regulations, Article 10, Section 1003.d, minimum lot width reduction, tax map parcel 098-015, 098-016-001, and 098-016-002. This was postponed from the November 18th, 2021 voting session. And since then, the applicant has requested to withdraw this application. Ms. Sharon.
As stated, the applicant did give us due notice that they were withdrawing the application, and we communicated that to as many individuals as we could. And we're looking forward to a withdrawal.
Okay. The board, you have any questions for Ms. Sharon before we move on? Okay, you have a couple of options available to you. You can go ahead and hear it, or you can vote to withdraw. You did receive a letter stating that they were totally looking at this thing completely again in a whole different light and redoing it. So what's the pleasure of the board?
I make a motion, we accept the withdrawal.
Motion to withdraw, Commissioner Fawcett,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Dooley. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And ZA 2121 and VR 2108 are withdrawn. We'll move on to special use 2107. Greg Spence, on behalf of Verizon Wireless, requests a special use of tax map parcel 049-001 for the purpose of placing a telecommunication tower, Highway 52 East. There's a variance associated with this as well. 2119, Greg Spence, on behalf of Verizon Wireless, requests a variance to the Dawson County Land Use Resolution, Article 4, Section 410F.4. You did receive information today in reference to that too, in reference to some changes to this, and Ms. Sharon will explain that the variance may not be needed.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
Go ahead.
This is 5 acres, and it is a special use request. The variance that tracked with the application and was presented to the planning commission. As of this afternoon, we were advised that the variance is no longer necessary. They were able to adjust the location on the property. The planning commission did recommend denial to the request. The balloon test was accomplished on November 1st, 2021, and that picture is in your backup staff did check the balloon test. And I'm also advised the applicant will have a presentation.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Any questions for Ms. Sharon? Is the applicant present? Come on up. Tell us what you would like to do.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is David Kirk. I'm with the law firm of Troutman Pepper Hamilton Sanders. Mr. Spence, who's the applicant on this on behalf of Verizon Wireless, is here with me. You're doing the slides, right? I actually can do it. Awesome. That's even better. There we go. Let me give you a little quick background. By the end of 2020, about 2/3 of adults in households have cut the cord and rely entirely on wireless devices for their personal, their business, and their emergency communications. That's higher, sort of the lower you get in the age spectrum. About 80% of your 911 calls are made on a wireless device. Data usage is growing tremendously, 40% annually. You can see the number there between 2010 and 2019, there was a 96-fold increase. So that doesn't even account for the tremendous increase in data usage during the pandemic. This graphic, I know it's hard to read, but if you look at the very center, that was in 2010. That's 388 billion megabytes of data were downloaded wirelessly. On the outside, that's 37 trillion. So that's again just a graphic representation of that nearly 100% or 100-fold increase in wireless service demand. So in that context, Verizon Wireless is proposing a telecommunication tower that's capable of hosting 4 carriers as your ordinance requires. It's located on a 59-acre portion of a 98-acre tract on Highway 52 East near Wesley Chapel Road. And it's intended to improve the service in that vicinity. We've asked for a special use permit for the tower itself. At the Planning Commission, there was a lot of discussion about the location of the tower, and we were requested by folks who were there, see if we could move it further back into the site. We've been able to do that, and I'll talk about that in a moment. But you're right, Mr. Chairman, you were saying that the variance is no longer required. So I'll give you the details of that in just a second. But with the removal of that variance requirement, we meet all the requirements that are in your ordinance. Very quickly, this is the area we're trying to serve better. This is the original tower location. And I highlight original. It's about 200 feet, actually 198 feet back from Highway 52. And again, as I said, we were told at the Planning Commission by neighbors that the tower was too close to the road. Could we please try to move it back into the site? Also, you see down in the lower left of this graphic, there's an existing tower. Verizon is actually on it. It's 2.9 miles away. That's the tower that gave rise to the need for the variance, because your ordinance says you have to be at least 3 miles away. We were 3 miles minus about 220 feet. So that was the one that required the variance, but that's changed. This is the revised location. As you can see in the white, that is over 500 feet back from the road now. So that's 1.5 times again further away than it was to begin with. The original site is located approximately where that red square is. It's now outside that 3-mile radius by about a little less than 60 feet. So that variance is no longer required. Again, it's more than 500 feet back from the road now. As far as the details of the tower compound, it still meets all the requirements of your ordinance. There's room on the ground and there will be room on the tower itself for 4 carriers. So that's Verizon plus 3. With regard to improvements to Verizon service, you can see here that there in that circle, there are some places that are green. Those tend to be the higher elevations. And admittedly, some folks in the area will no doubt tell you that their service is just fine. In fact, the chairman of the Planning Commission said his service was just fine. But not everybody's service is just fine in that area. as you can see from this. If you go from the green to the yellow to the red, that's service degradation. If you look around the other towers, you can see it's mostly green. So that means in those vicinities, you have very good service. That's what we want to do here. You can see with the addition of this site, that area turns largely green. We did do a balloon test. The photos I'm going to go through very quickly are from the original location. Again, they're from the original location. We're several hundred feet away from that original location. So I would submit that it'll be less visible from those locations now. This was the one that I think gave people the most concern. This was right at the road. That was less than 200 feet away. Again, it's now more than 500 feet away. Whoops, I did something wrong there.
He's been doing this.
There we go, sorry. This is another location, and again, with the tree cover, you couldn't see it then. I would submit you couldn't see it now. The third location, this is along Wesley Chapel Road. You can see it way back in there. You probably could still see it in a similar way there, because again, we're moving back. It's a little further away from Wesley Chapel Road at that point. And then the final location is again along Highway 52. And it's again further back. So let me just go back to this. We were at the Planning Commission and there were objections based on the tower location. And talking with staff and listening to the folks who were here in opposition, they said, move it back, try to move it back, please try to move it back. That's what we've done. It took.
Did you do another balloon test?
No, ma'am, we have not done another balloon test. And again, I would submit one would not be necessary because we're further back than the original one.
And how long did you leave the balloon up?
Mr. Spence is going to have to answer
Okay.
that question.
Yeah. Sometimes it's 4, but you think it was longer than that to give people opportunity to see it?
It was actually, the requirement was for a single hour, that it needed to only.
An
be
hour?
at 1
That's
hour.
what's required by your ordinance,
Yeah, it
but
was-
we left it up for longer.
While
than
they were going around and taking the photo simulations and everything else, it took time to get it up and then to go back to remove it and so forth. But the zoning ordinance calls for a single hour.
Thank
So again, this is the revised location. It's 500 and almost 510 feet back from the road, which is about 2.5 times, or however you want to measure it. It's 300 feet further back than it was before. So in summary, I think we've demonstrated through the materials we provided tonight and submitted for the record that this site will improve, significantly improve coverage to enhance the quality of service to folks who rely on their wireless devices for business. Will help first responders, will help the general public in the area as well as residents. We've moved that tower back that 300 feet in response in a good faith effort to respond to the concerns of the community. And we now fully meet all your ordinance requirements. We fully meet all your ordinance requirements. And because of that, we respectfully request that you approve the special use permit tonight. And again, for the record, we would ask that you allow us to withdraw the variance request because it is no longer, it's moot because we do no longer need it. But thank you so much. And Mr. Spence and I'll be happy to answer questions at the appropriate time.
Questions for the applicant?
Is, what's the elevation change from where the tower's proposed location was to where it sits back?
It's approximately
The
12,
direction
15
that
feet.
It's actually being lower elevation, or excuse me, it's higher elevation going to the north, which should lower the total tower height by 10, maybe 15 feet. We have not performed the survey yet. This is just an initial location that we were going to try to go back in there. So the survey walk is actually scheduled. We're getting back out there with the surveyors.
So if it's actually, if the ground elevation is higher, the tower will be lower. Is that correct?
To maintain the same AMSL once.
Right.
For that
So you're looking for the same tower height.
Right, it's the same above sea level
Yeah,
height.
height, yeah.
So that it's essentially in line with the other towers
Right.
that are in the area.
And I would add just one thing, that the tower is not lit. It is a monopole design, that the tower is not lit. It's not required by the FAA.
What's your proposed color if this is approved? What color are you going?
It would just be galvanized steel, sort of the bluish gray galvanized.
Would it be
galvanized steel.
shiny?
No.
Real
No, ma'am.
shiny?
No, ma'am. It would not be, it wouldn't be a polished aluminum sort of color. It would be sort of, I would say bluish gray. Yes, ma'am.
Just out of curiosity, I've seen it in other areas. What's the cost difference between that version and the ones that look like the trees?
I don't know the specific amount. I would guess the tree amount would be more because there'd be more maintenance involved. But from a visual standpoint, I would submit those stand out a lot more in terms of just visually, because they look like a redwood amongst the pines. Yeah.
They're not as pretty as redwood. No.
I would agree. I would agree. But just in terms,
stood next to
in terms of
them.
their height, in terms of their height, they stand out a lot more. And because of the profile, they're wider.
Yeah.
They tend to stand out a lot more. And if you drive up, sort of to Charlotte on I-85, there are a couple of there in the Charlotte and Kannapolis area alongside the interstate. And my daughters say, "Daddy, you'd never know that was a cell tower, would you?"
Oh, goodness.
So one of the things that rural American, especially North Georgia, deals with is a lack of quality internet connectivity. So can you expound upon how this tower could potentially help those that are in that particular area that don't have higher speed internets? Because that's something that, we hear often is in the rural areas, especially with residential, you don't have the high speed internet, and maybe y'all can tell us how that could potentially solve some of that area.
I can try just giving you my own example. When my daughters were home from college during the pandemic and my wife was working at home, I had trouble getting on the internet through our house's system. So I got out my phone and I pressed the little button that gives you a personal hotspot. And that provided, frankly, better connectivity to the internet, to Zoom calls and Teams meetings and all that stuff we've been doing the last year and a half than my home internet did. And we have home wired internet. And so that's one way it could potentially help. Is you can get those you can set up a mobile hotspot, set your devices or whatever on Wi-Fi and get your internet that way rather than waiting for fiber or whatever to come down the road. And I'll see if Mr. Spence has anything else to add to that.
Just that the standard services that you get here with a cell tower right across the street, it's going to add that service to the area that was shown in yellow and red where they weren't able to make that connectivity. This tower where it shows green would have the in-building type of service that you expect out of phones with internet connectivity and so forth.
I gotta tell you, these maps vary greatly from your advertising maps that show completely green.
Sales versus
Yeah, reality.
Well, I think it's just a different level of detail.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Sharon.
Go ahead. I got so many questions.
Go ahead.
If this were approved, when would construction begin?
Currently, it is slated for a 2023 build plan year. So Verizon versus some of the other carriers, they usually get the implementation piece of it, the leasing and the zoning completed, and then it goes into their bucket, so to speak, of what the build plan is going to be. They almost got the 2022 build plans scheduled out well in advance. So I would expect sometime probably fourth quarter of next year that they would look to start doing the pre-construction activities for a 2023.
And I think there's a tower like on Max Wehunt Road that really hasn't ever been activated. It's been there. Is that a Verizon tower? It's been there for a long time.
Verizon tends not to build towers that they're not gonna use.
No,
Okay.
they would not build until they were ready to
Okay.
go forth and put it on there. It would be a contiguous type of movement at that point.
And do your towers allow for, we're about to go through a process of expanding, going to a different network for our EMS and sheriff. Do these towers allow for those assets to be placed upon?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's my
That's
question.
that's really a policy. That's part of Verizon's commitment to be a good member of the community is to provide
Can
that.
you provide that for us for free?
Yes.
That's
Y'all get
It
that
can
on
it
record?
can be a condition of the approval. I just actually got contacted by Jefferson County 2 days ago to put their EMS on a tower that was built 2 years ago.
Do you have to run fiber to the base of these things?
You've got to run fiber, generally the right of way, there'll be fiber at the right of way, and then along the easement path that we have.
Yeah.
They'll run to the tower from there.
So you will have fiber to that base. I mean, there will be fiber up there.
As soon as they can get fiber, if fibers exists, they will tie into it. If not, there will be a microwave backhaul that will be utilized until fiber is available. They want everything on fiber. That's how
Yeah.
5G
Yeah.
is so fast. But they would develop a RAD center with space on the ground for the county for use for EMS.
So is there room, I guess, when you build your building, there's room for that equipment in there? They have to, we have to build our own.
Actually, it's Verizon no longer uses outdoor shelters. They
Mhm.
just use equipment pads with
Mhm.
outdoor equipment cabinets, so to speak. So any, what you would be basically required to do is at the time that you needed to put equipment up there, a structural analysis would have to be performed. And then a lease, whether it be $0 or not, you'd have to enter into an agreement. And just so it memorialized the equipment that was going up there and where in the compound that the equipment would be placed. You'd be responsible for the costs of pouring the slab and the equipment that goes on the tower. They would just
Right.
provide the space for free.
The road to this, where would it be built? Would it come off of 52 or
Yes,
Wesley
ma'am.
Chapel?
That's the
Come
current
off,
52.
plan.
And it's a crushed stone that they use, a 57 stone to improve back that far. It's just sort of a standard industry practice.
would you be responsible for maintaining that road?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you still put chain link fences around them? And
Yes. With anti-climbing devices, barbed wire at the top and then anti-climbing at the tower base.
is that for bears?
I haven't seen a bear get into a.
I
compound
probably
yet,
have.
But if they wanted to, I'm sure they could get in there.
They can figure a way out.
Other questions of the applicant? Thank you, gentlemen. We may have some later.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
This time I'll open up this hearing. Anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? Come on up. Give us your name and your address and you'll have 3 minutes.
All right, Joel Krotzer, 117 New Hope Trail. I really appreciate them being willing to bend on some of their ideas. I have some more realistic photos of what the balloon testing tower actually looks like. Theirs were shot from down at highway level up at the tower in the trees. The very word tower tells you what we'll actually be getting in case they're allowed to build this. If it please you, I'll bring you each a folder with the photos in it.
Yeah,
They've
you
not
can
been
hand them out.
doctored. They've been shot with a cell phone. They're not professional photos. And you can see that it will be 165 feet approximately above all trees. I grew up there. I know what the trees look like. I'm wearing a Dawson County classroom. I've been here for 4 or 5 generations. My concern is not how close it is to the road. I've traveled all over the world and I've had great experiences serving others and seen a lot of beautiful country, but there's nowhere like this place. It is the water basin for the Cochrane Falls area. There's 3 other waterfalls on this mountainside. And the photos will show the falls in relation to the balloon. You know, I do have some sketches on some other photos, but the truth of the matter is, it's not about how close it is to the road. It's about destroying one of the most beautiful things where people come to hike. They come from all over the world and they hike there and they're going to look down, they're going to see a cell phone tower now right at the base of these waterfalls. The tower would need to go back toward Lumpkin County extensively to serve the area they're targeting, which I assume is the development area of Iron Mountain and on down 52 that way. Most people in the Dawson County area, the planning and zoning were very astute in declining it because they said it would not benefit Dawson County citizens. And we're in agreement on that. It's mainly going to serve Lumpkin County. So if they move it back toward Lumpkin County, they won't impact this beautiful view you're looking at. To me, it's just, it's a bad call to put it there. Cell phone towers are really obsolete. My wife has a Wi-Fi in her Suburban. She can get from a satellite anywhere in the mountains, any service she wants. There's high-speed internet already there. Windstream's got it run right by my property. You can get into it if you want to. They're going to charge you for it. But most of what we talk about is better than a cell phone tower for homes and for automobiles. There's no dead spots from a satellite. You can put 10 towers on that mountain. You'll never get over Emiclow Falls with any service you offer to that area. So the target area is going to be in the hub of that mountain between Emiclow Falls and the Dawson Lumpkin County line and Iron Mountain in that area. And the balloon test, as you see, towers way above anything that you were showing on this slide tonight. It's not going to be obscured. It's going to be about 165 foot above the tree line, no matter where you put it on that hill line. That's my back porch you're looking at. And 52 is not my concern. It's going to be developed whether you get a tower or not.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak in opposition? Come on up. Give us your name and your address, and after you've signed in, you'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Larry Kohler. I'm actually within walking distance of Mr. Crutcher here. I live on New Hope Road. Okay, as Mr. Crotcher did point out, the pictures were taken at the road and so on. I have a picture that I took from about 50 feet south of the Samples Way intersection on Bailey Waters Road. If I can approach, I can show it to you. Got it on my phone here.
You just walk it up through there so they can see it. Show it to them. Okay.
Other concerns that some of us brought up after the planning commission meeting was when the tower goes in, how long is it going to be before they ask to replace it with a higher one? That will have the blinking lights and we'll have all the other things that everybody's really worried about. That's pretty much what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else speak in opposition to the application? Come on up. Give us your name, your address, please sign in, then you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Patricia Beard and I live on Crane Road, but my deal is that those towers cause cancer. They're toxic, and it's beautiful country up there. So why would y'all want to put a tower up there to cause health problems for people?
Anything else?
No, that's all.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone else? Come on up, give us your name and your address, please sign in. After that, you will have 3 minutes.
I am Shane Turner. I live at 3314 Bailey Waters Road. I live right on the corner of 52 and Bailey Waters. So from my back deck, I'm overlooking the intersection. From where the balloon was placed, it is directly in my line of sight. It is eye level with my back door. The property itself is just the view is the number one part of the property. It is the only reason that I built my house there. Plan on raising my kids there. At least I hope to stay there, as my forever home. With a cell phone tower in there, it will ruin the property value. It will ruin the view. From that point, there's really no reason to stay there, looking at a cell phone tower every day out your back door. Does anybody know what the property value would decrease because of the site difference? Has anybody took that into consideration? Well, that is my main concern. I don't want to walk out my back door and look at a cell phone tower. Thank you.
Thank
The-
you.
The view or the property value? Both.
The main concern, I don't ever plan on selling the property. When I built my house, I never intended on selling. The way it is now, that's, if they don't have the view, there's no point.
Thank you. Anyone else is here to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll close that hearing. What is the pleasure of the board?
This property looks like it's right on the edge of Lumpkin County. Is that right? I don't know who wants to answer that.
Yes. It's close.
Yeah, man, it seems like right on the edge and yeah.
The property is about 98 acres. And I think I said about 50, close to 60 of that 58 acres is in Dawson County. The remainder is in Lumpkin County. Yes, sir. But just to point out, the gentleman said that this is to serve Lumpkin County. It is not. A portion of Lumpkin County will get better service because that's the way the antennas are arrayed, 120 degrees apart from each other. So one of those antennas will serve Lumpkin County. The other two are absolutely Dawson County.
I'm curious from a strategic standpoint, why y'all applied to put it in Dawson County when Lumpkin County doesn't have zoning?
Because this is where the need is.
We've said the property is in both.
A portion of the property is in Lumpkin County. It's further, it's well back. It's the back portion of the property. And I don't know what the topography looks like. And Mr. Spence was involved in looking for the property. So we want to serve the Highway 52 corridor and the communities around there. And once we get, the further away we get from there, the more the service improvement is.
County actually does have zoning for cell towers. I did a pre-application meeting with them 2 months ago. We've got another property closer over to Kalaniga that's actually got to go through that process. And the further that you move it away into the Lumpkin County, the more visible the tower is going to become. It's just a matter of topography, and if rerunning those services, I don't know if we'd be able to maintain the same height of the tower so that it is not lit. This is the absolute minimum height that the engineering can be utilized here for that cell tower to work with the other surrounding towers. That's why we're in the move. We've got to be able to try to maintain that same center of service.
And just to be clear, we have no intent of bait and switch to come in and get a 199 foot or 195 foot tower approved and then come back and try to increase the height. That I think that's just a red herring.
So that's not true, that it won't be long till it will be taller.
That's not a true statement. We're asking for what we need. That's our intent.
What's your opinion on the fact that towers may be obsolete? Everything just keeps getting smaller, and sometimes you just put a button on something and, instead of stuff getting bigger. So what's your opinion on that?
Well, I can tell you my personal opinion is that I've been doing this for 22 years now. And folks were saying it 22 years ago. That you can just get, you're just gonna have a satellite phone and everybody's gonna, communicate with satellite phones. And that's, I think quite frankly, that's why some jurisdictions have an abandonment clause in their ordinance for telecommunications towers, is they thought, well, someday these will be obsolete. And they're not. If you can afford a satellite phone, maybe it is. But for most folks, it's not.
And so y'all did not float the balloon where your proposed new towers at?
We have not had the time to do that, sir.
Okay, so
I mean,
would
we
you
just
take
heard-
that, would you take the time to float the balloon so everybody will have a better understanding of where your true desire is to now place the location?
Sure. If that's
I
desire,
think
if
that
that's desire of the
paints-
board.
I think that paints the clearer picture. I mean, we're going on hypotheticals here now because we've seen pictures from you guys that are produced as well as from the audience of pictures of a balloon that is irrelevant because you're talking about moving the location. Correct?
I would not disagree. And if it's the will of this body to have us do that, either as a condition of approval or before you act on it.
Well, from my perspective, I like to have as much factual information as I can before I make a decision. So that would be relevant since y'all made it relevant by showing us pictures.
Would it be possible to see the photos that were provided to you?
I look around it.
That's fine.
That's
all right,
you're good.
that's all right.
Okay.
Maybe take 30 seconds to look at these.
Yeah.
So there's one photo that actually shows the balloon?
Yes.
Okay.
And that was. So the balloon doesn't appear in the, well, I don't want to get into a discussion with the audience, but no, it does look like this was taken with a telephoto lens to make the balloon appear closer to the extent that's relevant.
And if you do that, and I know you said an ordinance just says to float it for an hour, but that's really not much time to me. It's so, and I can't put any teeth in this, but I would like to request that you float it longer than that. At least, well, it's no secret that we have one on our property. I'm not trying to hide that. We don't own it anymore, but when they did ours, that was in 2009, and they floated it for 4 hours. And that seemed better, give people a little more time to see. So I just wonder, like I said, I can't make you do it, but to give people more time to see.
That would be fine. I mean,
Mhm.
we just have to make sure that during that 4 hours, the wind doesn't pick up and make it a
Yes.
dangerous situation. So we'd have to pick our time to do that.
And I would love to know when you're doing it, so I can
I-
put it up there.
I'd be happy to let you know personally.
Mhm. That would be great.
And, if you want to, Commissioner Gaines seems to be going in the direction of, he wants to defer until after I don't want to put words in your mouth, but to
No,
give you.
I just want the full picture. Y'all
Right, to get
provided
full picture. If it's the will of this body to defer, you can certainly defer with direction that we do it for at least 4 hours.
Other information needed? Motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to deny because if you got an application to build a house and you're not building at the location you applied for, I say it needs to come back through the application process and have application of where actually it's going to be located. So I'll make a motion to deny.
We have a motion to deny. Do I have a second? Dies for lack of a second. Do I have another motion?
In order to facilitate having the full picture in front of us, I would make the motion that we table this for, it's really hard to put a date on it until that there's enough time in order to facilitate providing a clear picture by floating a balloon for a minimum of 4 hours with notification prior to this board to allow us to physically be on site to see it. And then after that, as well as residents around there to gain a good or better understanding of where you're physically talking about locating it. And then it would be to have for, bring it back before the board after that.
When do you have a date? Do you have a date? Okay. You don't know how
No,
long
with
it'll
the
take.
engineering, with us trying to get out next week to provide a little greater detail of topography to really kind of nail down where it would best benefit
Stake in the ground.
to put a lower, kind of a lower tower to maintain the same rad center. I would think that sometime probably first couple of weeks of January, we could get out there to do the balloon test with proper notification. And then seek to come back through.
I would suggest then, I mean, when is the January meeting?
20th.
Do you think you could have it done by the 20th? I mean, you can always put it on the February agenda for an abundance of caution in case there's issues with weather or anything like that. But I would suggest adding a set date for the meeting.
February 3rd.
And obviously you bring it back and we still have issues with the ones that have been brought up tonight. There still could be. I'm not telling you, you're getting approval just to go float the thing.
I understand, understand. Yes, sir.
All right, so we have a motion. The table, you gonna add that date?
To the February
February
3rd, to, yes. I will
Motion to
amend my
table
motion.
until February the 3rd.
Correct, with my other stipulations being that there is
Balloon
adequate
test for 4
notification,
hours.
balloon test for 4 hours for this board.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines, seconded by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that's table 3-1. All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much. Happy holidays, everybody.
You too. I will move on to ZA 21-22. Redo Properties LLC request to rezone tax map parcel 094-044 from RS residential sub-rule to RMF residential multifamily for the purpose of bringing a non-conforming use into zoning compliance on Reeves Road. Sharon.
Yes, this is a parcel just off Highway 9, almost 9 acres. That is a non-conforming use. It's been out there
Okay, thank
since the late 80s. It is basically multifamily housing, and it's being rezoned to bring it into compliance from a zoning standpoint. I believe the applicant is with us. The planning commission recommended approval.
You're saying basically this is just to get it into compliance.
Yes.
It's already there. Okay. Is the applicant present? Come on up.
My name is Rex Gravitt, and I'm the managing member of Redo Properties. And I've owned this property for several years. It's just south of the city of Dawsonville on Highway 9. And it was built by Gene Odom back before there were any zoning regulations. And I really didn't even realize it wasn't zoned until I was trying to refinance the property. The mortgage company said they did a phase 1 study on it, and they came back and said the property wasn't zoned unless I could get a letter from the county saying if a disaster happened, I could build it back. They wouldn't do the loan. And so basically I'm just trying to rezone it to protect my investment. Don't want to try to expand it. Just, you know, if a building were to burn or be destroyed by wind or a tree fell through it, that I could put it back. And there's currently 27 units there. I don't know if you probably read the letter I put in, but there's 27 residential units.
Okay. Questions of the applicant?
And you're saying you have no interest in adding more?
Well, I mean, the only way I could is to have sewer. I don't have sewer right now, so no, I don't have any plans to expand it. I'm not sure I would, even if I could, with the cost of construction nowadays. I don't know that it's feasible. But no, I don't have any plans to expand. I just want to keep what we have.
Looking at topography, it looks like it's kind of a challenge once you get off that site anyways.
Yeah, you're right. Unless you had sewer there, it would be a very challenge.
Do you manage any other
Yes,
apartments or?
I do own Gravett Apartments, which
Okay.
is on Highway 53.
Mhm.
Gene Gravett built those, and we did the same thing with those. We brought them before the board and brought them into compliance. I own Dawsonville Apartments, which is another set that Gene Gravett built. And then it's inside the city. We're in,
That 9 kind of across from the white church.
yes. Mhm. And then we own, it's actually an extended stay motel in the city of Dawsonville. It's called Dawsonville Suites. It was like a retirement home before, and then we rezoned it as a extended stay motel and rent apartments out by the week. That one's right close to the old car wash as you come south out of town on 9.
Other questions for the applicant? Think we may have some later. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, at this time, I'll open up this hearing. Anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here to speak in favor of the application? Anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone here speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none, I'll close that hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Satterfield,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. ZA 2122 is approved 4-0. We'll move on to unfinished business. Consideration of a proposed short-term rental bed and breakfast establishment ordinance tabled from the December 2nd, 2021 voting session, at which time a public hearing was held. The board heard from the citizenry as well as from our planning department that did go back for some work through our legal department as well. So Ms. Sharon, come on up and talk about some of the
Thank you.
changes.
I flagged the 3 changes that the staff, well, say, our legal counsel placed into the ordinance after much discussion. We left the short-term rental on the less than 2 nights. There was some discussion that to remove it completely, but we just went ahead and left that in. The next change, I think I flagged it green, was tried to address Commissioner Dooley's inquiry regarding the parking and having somebody turn their front yard into a parking lot. So we changed the ratio to a maximum of 1 parking space per bedroom. So, and then some language regarding that you can't park in your front yard. And that's the green flag. Yellow towards the back under permit fee is that the permit is going to be valid for 12 months. There was concerns over a 3-year permit. So those were the 3 changes made by staff and legal.
Questions of Sharon?
Yeah, I want to ask you about the minimum. And somebody had mentioned to me, and I hadn't thought about it, thought if somebody just, if it was a minimum of 1 night, that they would not fall under this. Is that correct? If somebody comes in here and they say, I want to stay 1 night, does this not apply to them?
No, we wouldn't have that conversation with somebody staying at a place. Your permit would include these regulations. Certainly, it would be hard to enforce if somebody rented, but the only thing we can check is their online advertisements, their vacation rental by owner information and contracts should all read a minimum of 2 nights.
And if I might
Why
add,
do you- Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, explain. I'm troubled about this.
I think that's a fair point. And I've had a conversation, not on this ordinance, but about a different one on that very point.
Really?
So if you want to clarify that, so that there is no question, I think we could add an affirmative requirement, not in the definition section, but I think there's even a section in here called additional requirements. So if you want a 2-night minimum stay memorialized somewhere else as an affirmative requirement, we can say the rental of short-term rental properties shall be a minimum of a 2-night stay. Or, I mean, I can polish the language a little bit. We can put that elsewhere in the ordinance, so there's no question that we're not talking about it. And in fact, that might be a better a use of the definition, to remove the minimum from the definition and move it to the additional regulations, additional requirements.
Other questions for council or for Sharon?
Yes, and the for staff. Application. And I'd asked this question last time about the number of bedrooms. Is there any way to check with what the house was permitted for? Like if it's a 3-bedroom house and they're listed it as a 5-bedroom house or a 6-bedroom house.
They're
Kind of
gonna-
go along, because I mean, if they've done some remodeling or adding on that we don't know about it.
Yeah.
We're also losing tax money on it too, but if they're advertising for more house than what is on the books.
Well, our permits probably only go back to the late 80s, so we
Right.
would have that information. You would have the tax information, septic tank permits issued. They have to give us a floor plan, so there would be some, I don't want to say research, but there would be some view of checking and how, I mean, most homes, if it's a smaller home, wouldn't have come with a 4 or 5 bedrooms. So, we probably just take a look, common sense approach. What do you think this house was really built and designed for?
Going back to that, if they have a septic tank, then obviously it's based on bedroom.
Correct,
So you'll be able to pull that from environment.
correct. And their records go way back.
I'd like to look at our tax record too, just see what it's
Mhm.
being appraised for.
In section 30-514 and C, it says to change the designated agent, the owner shall notify the Dawson County in writing of the new agent's identity. The Dawson County what? Shall
Yeah, we'll
notify
strike
the
the-
Dawson, huh?
Just Dawson County,
Should be
Just
Dawson.
Dawson.
which would be
Shall
our
know-
planning commission.
Shall not, okay, and that's also in section 3515C. It also, number C also says the same thing. The owner shall notify
see
the
that.
Dawson County.
Okay.
Okay.
So just mark
Yeah.
out the.
We were probably, I'm gonna guess that we were still debating whether we were going to have a marshal or not. And maybe
Oh,
took it
okay.
out and put it back in.
Well, reckon that's what ought to be put in. Oh, well, we're gonna have to. aren't
We are. we
First
are.
year.
Well, you reckon that's what ought to be put in there? If anybody says Dawson County, will
Yeah.
people know who that is?
I think that would be.
I think it should probably be Marshall.
Marshall.
Let's add that.
I
in.
do
Because the
too.
marshal will be.
In both those
enforcing it.
locations.
Both those locations.
It needs to
And
be.
anywhere else it needs in there.
And anywhere else. we
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just saw two, I
Good
don't know. Okay, renewal of permit, we went from 3 to 1. Okay, and reasons for revocation. What constitutes a public nuisance? Does anybody, I mean, is there a definition? I mean, what I might think is a nuisance, somebody else might think it's a party.
I'm not sure if we
What's the
define that.
difference?
I'm sure the sheriff's office defines it.
Well, we got to know.
We got a Noah's ordinance that would probably fall under.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, I
that's
think that
true.
is where it's defined.
Yeah.
I know I've seen it somewhere.
Section 35-519 D, number 4 mentions the public.
And
Yes.
I can look into it and let you know if I can find something right now.
We
That's
can
kind of a
insert,
general term. Like I said, that's kind of up for interpretation.
It is.
Uh,
probably could insert in guidelines to our Noah's ordinance.
And then the effective date of this, is it right that it will be 60 days from the date of adoption? This won't be immediate? It won't?
That would be a policy decision that.
Well, it was
So the-
written in this up here and
Correct.
it said it would be.
Correct. That was just to give us.
That
some
could be
time.
changed though. if you say
Yes,
so.
that can be
Okay.
changed.
That was
That's-
just to give
Wanna
us
move
some
vote
time
on
to
it, yeah.
create forms and
Oh, okay.
that kind of work. And give
Okay.
people notice that, send this out.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I can provide one comment about the public nuisance. It looks like staff included that language similar to what's in the alcohol license ordinance. So that exact language is there. Now, of course, to have a revocation of a license, they would have to be brought before you for a
Yes.
public hearing. So, I think a lot of the criteria for what would bring someone to you for revocation is already very clearly lined out. So if you don't like that language, then that's easily stricken. I don't think you're going to be getting rid of anything that would give you due cause to have them come before you. But it is, I
And
think.
those penalties that are written in there, those 3 different levels,
Mhm.
is that from other counties? I don't know. I'd like to see it a little bit stricter, but.
If you want
I'm not-
stricter, when the board gave direction on this, it was, to come up with a permitting scheme and present it before you. So some of this has been adopted. I think Cherokee has something similar to that. I believe Forsyth has
Just wondered
something
if it
similar to
works.
that. But if you want something different, that's absolutely,
Is $250 gonna keep somebody, is that enough? If you're making a lot of money, is that gonna deter you? Just, I'll try to check for $250.
maybe not,
So-
though I'll say in magistrate court, which is where, violations would be prosecuted.
Yes,
Under state law, ordinance violations can't be charged at more than $1,000.
that was the 3rd level.
And-
The
and-
1,000 was the 3rd.
But
It
level.
is, but-
ultimately, they have to come back to reapply for an application.
Right,
Renewal,
so-
so there's teeth in
If
it
they
there.
get to the 3rd
Exactly.
level.
So that's why there's different aspects to that. So
Okay.
you have the quasi criminal aspect in magistrate court, which, maybe not. It might not be such a significant fine, but you also do have the accountability to you. And that's the whole reason for the permitting. Otherwise, you could get them for other violations of the code, like noise ordinance and
Yeah.
things like that. But the ordinance is providing that permitting mechanism, the administrative oversight that allows you to hold them accountable regardless of the monetary impact that a nominal fine
We
might
can give
have.
it a whirl, and then if it doesn't seem to deter anybody,
True.
we can
We
go
can come
back and
back.
Yep.
change it, revisit it.
And there is conversation at the state, legislature, trying to figure out a way to kind of uniformly address this. Question the legal is if, just like the alcohol ordinance at the state level is pretty mundane, and then at local levels, you can be more restrictive. And so even if the state were to pass something, we still are comfortable with any language that we have, as long as it didn't contradict what the state has, we can be more enforceable. but not
Correct.
less.
Yes. And if there were something that were adopted at the state level that conflicted, we would evaluate that and make recommendation if we needed to repeal any language, or if something warranted, beefing up a different section, we can absolutely look at that. And that happens from time to time in lots of our regulatory areas. But generally, yes, you can't be less restrictive than the state. You can be more restrictive.
Yeah, these changes address some of the main issues that I had was the parking situation, the annual renewal instead of a 3-year. The noise needs to stay with the noise ordinance for just a simplification, if anything, of code enforcement. The 2-day, I think I said it in the last meeting, I think weekends, the Friday night, Saturday night should be a requirement of a 2-day. I'm somewhat okay if it's a Tuesday and you want to do a 1-day, I could lean on that, but weekends definitely, I would have to meet a 2-day.
I would like to talk a little bit more about the public nuisance thing because I know we have our noise ordinance, and if they're making noise, and that's something we can do, but what if it's a nuisance that's not regulated by a code? How does that fall? Like, for instance, if somebody has bright lights shining into somebody's house at 3 o'clock in the morning,
And that happens.
like, how does that,
That happens.
how can we, if we don't have a code that specifically says you can't do that, how do we say that's a public nuisance for this? For purposes of you know, the ordinance and going enforcement with that.
So there is general law on what a nuisance, what constitutes a nuisance. So we would have to look at that on a case-by-case basis to see if what is occurring would rise to that level, such as to bring it back to you for possible hearing. It wouldn't be necessarily a specific ordinance-based issue. It
So
would
even if
have
it's
to be
not
case
something
by
that we
case.
have codified, that we can go back to it if it's a general law or something that we can look at. That's what I want to make sure. I just don't want to exclude something, you know, saying that, oh, if you're following noise ordinance, you're good, because that may not be, you know, there's other
No,
nuisances.
that's a fair point. And I think that we would just have to analyze it on a case-by-case basis based
Okay.
on what the particular facts were, and what the issues that were being presented were.
Other questions of Sharon or council? So what's the pleasure of the board?
I think we need to get something started now, so I make a motion that we adopt it as it is.
With the changes?
Has this
Mhm,
revised
yes,
one is-
yes, with the latest,
Revised
one,
one?
with the changes.
And
yeah.
with the changes to add the marshal where you discussed.
Yes.
And I would also ask that the 2-night minimum be moved from the definition section to section 30-513 to provide that if y'all are up for 2-night minimum across the board, that's
Extra
fine.
enforcement.
But to make it subsection D requiring that any rental, any use of a short-term rental property shall be for a 2-night minimum.
Okay. Good with all that in your
I'm
motion?
good with it. I'm good with it.
All right. A motion by Commissioner Fawcett. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion.
I think this is a starting point, and we continue to gain feedback from public as well as other members, and we continue to work through this. This is a new thing that is upon us in a lot of other communities, and so we've got to start somewhere.
Let me ask Sharon before we do this, though. Do you want the 60-day effective? Do you need that to
I do.
get stuff? Okay.
Well,
all
let
right,
me,
we'll stand.
let me restate that. The new marshal will.
So
Okay.
that's in there.
Okay, so we'll just leave that.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I think once we get the marshals online and his staff or her staff or whoever is in that job, you know, during certain months, maybe summer months, we might have to do some kind of alternating shift where they work at night or late hours during certain months of the year, so they can go out and immediately take care of some of these problems if it's happening. I know the sheriff, they're running other calls and, you know, they might not come out there right away, but maybe we can have a marshal working at night and weekends, or one of them, that can go out and address these problems
Or
right
at
away.
least an on-call
On call.
or
Yeah.
something.
They can do a rotating shift or whatever, but
And we've already discussed that, Commissioner, with the marshal's position and and then hiring of the other code enforcement officers. So we have talked about shift work and moving that around. So once this comes in effect, we'll have that covered.
yeah, and it addresses a lot. I mean, some complaints we get, a lot of complaints we get sometimes with signs and everything else on the weekends. We go out on a Monday and they're gone. So that'll help.
That's, when we do these ordinances, sometimes it's the enforcement, it all comes down to how can we enforce it?
Yeah.
And so it's going to take a lot of energy and effort out of staff to enforce this thing. And my request of all these owners is that they make sure that they're renting to quality people to help mitigate the issues that we have experienced.
It's hard to know because they'll promise you anything.
Give them a copy of the ordinance when they read it.
Yeah.
And I think this is a good place to start, and it may need some tweaking as we move down the road, but I think we're close enough. I don't think we need to keep putting it off. I think we're close enough to get something done.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. That's approved 4-0. Right. Move on into New business. First up, we have consideration to move forward to a public hearing for an ordinance amending chapter 30 of the code of Dawson County to establish a mechanism whereby county residents may petition the Board of Commissioners for the creation of a special tax district to fund capital improvement projects. We talked about this on numerous occasions. This will just be moving it to a public hearing. Any other information needed? Motions.
Make a motion to approve to go to public hearing.
Motion by Commissioner Satterfield,
Second.
second by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that's approved 4-0. Next up, we have consideration of new agreement with Professional Probation Services Incorporated. That was presented to us a couple of weeks ago. Any other information needed on that? This is basically just renewal. Motions.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Dooley,
Second.
second by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that is approved 4-0. Next up, we have consideration of compensation of court bailiffs. There was some change to that. Instead of $6,000, it was $3,000.
Good job.
Dollars. And Ms. Vicky has stated, and she sent that out, that going on past history, there's already enough money in the budget to accomplish that. So if you want to consider that raise that was recommended by the grand jury, it is not something you have to do because the recommendation by the grand jury is not automatic. But it comes out to be about $3,000, but we already have it budgeted. So, got any questions?
Yeah. How many court bailiffs do you have in Dawson County? Do you know?
I do. We have 4. Typically work about a week out of the month. This
Oh.
year, we have about 119 total days for a bailiff. So 4 working infrequently.
Is that enough?
It is, we bud, in that $3,000 is an increase of 10%, just kind of forecasting with some additional activity coming out of the COVID that we expect will probably schedule a few more days with the bailiffs. So we've included a kind of a 10% bump in 2022.
Do you have trouble getting people to serve as bailiffs?
Not typically. We've added, just recently, had to recruit, but not typically a problem to find some folks to help us out.
They normally stay a long time.
I do.
I think there was a concern brought up in the last meeting that this was not put on the budget. And I think it was alluded to that y'all had given it to our finance staff and they didn't move it forward. However, I did some diligence and our staff was waiting on some information back from y'all. So that's why it did not get put on us. So it's not our staff that really dropped the ball and didn't get that put on the budget hearing.
Other information. Motions.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Satterfield,
Second.
second by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that is approved 4-0. Next, we'll move on to consideration of request for approval of FY 2022 State Public Defender contract. This is just a redo, as we do annually. Any other information needed? Motions.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett,
Second.
second by Commissioner Dooley. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that is approved 4-0. Next up, we have consideration of request for approval of FY 2022 Public Defender Intergovernmental Agreement between Dawson and Hall County. No real changes here either. Any other information needed? Motions.
Motion approved.
Motion by Commissioner Satterfield, seconded by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. That's approved 4-0. Next up, we have consideration request to apply for grant for a generator at Rock Creek Park. Chief Thompson brought that up to you. So that generator would If we get the grant, we go at Rock Creek Park, and we use Rock Creek Park as one of our shelter locations. So that would be a great asset during those times. Any other information needed? Motions.
Make motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that's approved 4-0. Next up, we have consideration of board appointments. Start out with Joint Development Authority and Development Authority of Dawson County, Carol Turner, replacing Betsy McGriff and Calvin Byrd respectively. The term is January 2022 through December 2022. So he's finishing out that term. Any other information needed? Motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines,
Second.
second by Commissioner Satterfield. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And Mr. Turner is approved 4-0. Next up, we have Park and Recreation, Christopher Conowall, reappointment, term January 2022 through December 2025. Matt brought that to us, said that Mr. Conowall is doing a good job on the park board, and the park would recommend that he be reappointed. Any other information needed? Motions.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Dooley,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And Mr. Conowall is approved 4-0. Next up, we have the tax assessor. You do have two people to consider here. First being Andrea McKenzie, who currently serves in that position. It'll be a reappointment if you decided to go with her, term January 2022 through December 2026. And then Mrs. Roxanne Howard, be the same. It would be an appointment if you decided to go with Ms. Howard, term January 2022 through December 2026. I did make a request to the tax assessor's office for them to send us some information, which y'all did receive in reference to attendance and certification processes. And y'all did receive that information, and I wanted you to have that so you can make a informed decision. So there's your two choices for tax assessor, and I'll entertain a motion. Board.
Based on the information that we received, I would like to have Roxanne Howard appointed to the Tax Assessors Board, January 2022 through December 2026.
That's your motion?
Yes.
Okay, motion for Miss Roxanne Howard from Commissioner Fawcett.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Satterfield. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And Ms. Howard is approved 4-0. All right, let's see. We also have addition under number 7 and board appointments under new business, Industrial Building Authority. This is D, will be D. Mr. Gary Coates, reappointment, term January 2022 through December 2025. And Mr. Brian Trapnell, reappointment, term January 22 through December 2025. And this is to the Industrial Building Authority. Any other information needed? Motions.
Your motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Gaines,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Dooley. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And Mr. Coates and Mr. Trapnell are approved 4-0 for reappointment. Move on down to the Planning Commission, which will be E under number 7, consideration of board appointments. Jason Hamby, District 1, reappointment, term January 2022 through December 2022. Seth Stowers, District 1, alternate, reappointment, term January 22 through December 2022. Tim Bennett, District 3, reappointment, term January 2022 through December 2022. And Gene Marathsky, District 3, alternate, reappointment, term January 2022 through December 2022, which go in line with the commissioner's terms. Any other information needed on those? Motions.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Dooley,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Satterfield. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. All right, Mr. Hamby, Mr. Stowers, Mr. Bennett, and Ms. Maransky are all reappointed in their current positions. All right, number 9.
Mr. Chairman, don't forget number 8.
Oh, number 8. What I miss? Oh, yeah, right here, number 8. Yeah. All right, consideration of 2022 Board of Commissioners Vice Chair appointment. All right, so who do y'all want to put that off on?
I make a motion, Commissioner Fawcett.
Can you deny? Can you deny?
Decline?
What I want, if we got any volunteers.
She wants to see if there's a volunteer.
Yes.
Anybody want to volunteer to be the vice chair?
He said he wouldn't mind it a bit.
Well, I don't mind, but I just want to make sure everybody else has a turn.
Anyone
You need to
else?
withdraw that.
Interested?
Can I make a, yeah, well, you said you were interested.
I said
too.
I don't mind doing it. I'm like him.
All right, so we got 2 that don't mind doing it.
I mind doing it.
Okay,
Flip a coin.
I got one if you want me
I tried,
to.
Sharon.
Huh.
I said, I tried.
All right,
You're.
so which one of y'all gonna do it? Which one of y'all want to do it?
I make a motion we appoint Emery Dooley for vice chair for the year 2022.
All right, so do you withdraw your motion?
I withdraw my.
All right, so we have a motion. Do I have a second for Mr. Emery Dooley as vice chair?
Second.
Second, motion by Commissioner Gaines, seconded by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote.
I should have seconded
Come out,
Tim's
please.
motion.
And that is approved 4-0. You are now reappointed. Now I'll move on to number 9. Family Connection 2022 Physical Agent Request. You heard that today. We have been doing that for many years. Any other information needed? Motions.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett. Second by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote.
Oh, it's mine. Thank you. Okay. I thought I said-
And that's approved 4-0. Next up, we have contract 386-21, design build services for 2 artificial infield grass surfaces. And that's a change order. That change order, maximum of $369,061. That would be paid for through impact fees if you so desired to go with the change order. You had a couple of other options. You could cancel the contract if you so desired. Or they could move their request up to Veterans Park. As we stated before, I don't think we're going to save any money if we cancel the contract, and rebid this thing. And as Commissioner Gaines stated before, and I will agree that those people have been waiting patiently a long time for this to be done. And I think that with what we've seen in reference to the change order, and that was the maximum amount, could be less if they can use the dirt across the street. So what's the pleasure of the board?
What was that maximum amount?
369,061.
369,061. I make a motion that we approve the change order as presented this evening in the maximum amount of $369,061.00.
Using impact fees.
Using impact fees, correct.
Okay. Got a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Gaines, seconded by Commissioner Satterfield. Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask Melissa and the county manager's got that information too. I mean, part of their phases, they would have, whoever had got the bid would have had to do this study and came up with the same conclusion that the county did. The county went out and checked it too, just to make sure. But even with the other bids, this company would still be low bid. If you add it to, some of them would be closer to 2 million and $1.8 million. So even with the change, this company would still be the low bid on it.
Okay, any other
And I-
discussion?
You know, I know that's a lot of money, but we're not going to abandon the fields at Rock Creek Park. So we need to go ahead and, I feel like, go ahead and do it.
Okay. Other discussion? Motions.
We already,
All right, got a motion and second. All right, so. All right, please vote. And that's approved 4-0. Go ahead, move forward. All right, let's see here. Next, we have title and grade change for 2 information technology employees. Spoke with Miss Vicky after the work session in reference to that. If the board decides to do this, that would go into effect January the 8th, because that's when all the other stuff goes into effect, which is also associated with the raises and stuff that you approved in the budget, and that is the date. So that would go into effect on that particular date. It's $21,000 something for the title and grade change. And as I said, that came to you because it is a title and grade change. And the board is the only people that can do that. And also reminded that there's a $2,080 that they're already going to get as part of what you already approved. So if you minus that out, you're looking at about $17,000. So that can either come out of fund balance or out of the revenue that you have approved for county manager head. So what's the pleasure of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve and the funds coming out of fund balance.
Okay. Motion to approve by Commissioner Satterfield with funds out of fund balance.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Fawcett. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And those title and grade changes are approved 4-0, and the money will come out of fund balance. Okay. All right. Number 12 is the updated Title VI plan in Georgia Department of Transportation Drug and Alcohol Policy for 2022. And this is something that we have to do on a regular basis. Is there any other information needed? Motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Dooley, second by Commissioner Gaines. Discussion. None, please vote. And that is approved 4-0. No one signed up for public comment in this section.
No, sir.
And with that, we are adjourned. I want to wish all of you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, both those that are here as well as those that are listening to us online. Everybody stay safe.